Well, hey there. I'm Pastor Cody,
And I'm Pastor Matt.
and we're here on this Faithful Tuesday to have ourselves a conversation.
Let's do it.
We're going to do it. So this week, we're going to jump into, he's been out, crazy, chaotic couple weeks.
Chaotic waters.
Chaotic waters.
Yes.
You are the fish.
Yes.
But it's a great segue. But we're talking about Jonah. I'm doing a mini-series on Jonah while he is on
trying to catch up on life.
Yeah, just catching up on life. So,
Yeah.
man, let's jump in.
Yeah. Enjoy this time as we talk about Pastor Cody's messages.
It's going to be great. They're so entertaining.
Yeah.
And the links are in the description. Please like and subscribe. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. God bless. Do less. God bless.
Cool.
So, an icebreaker question. Here we go. The zombie
my turn.
apocalypse. Yeah, I'm gonna. Excuse me. I am drinking.
Carbonated.
Good heavens.
I'm drinking. You're belligerent from three sips of a
cherry Coke. Yeah, that has 0 sugar. I'm back on the diet fasting bandwagon and just trying to be a blessing to everyone in my household. But
Well, amen.
yeah, so anyway, forgive my burps as I'm drinking that. But I'm going to kind of run the questions today, which means they're probably not going to be very good or very many questions, but we're going to talk about Pastor Cody's message.
We're going to chat.
Yeah, I listened on YouTube. So do you know that, Bethlehem Church, or anyone watching this, that if you miss a Sunday, you missed the live stream broadcast, maybe you couldn't even be, I was literally being discharged from the hospital during, my wife was being discharged. I was with her from the hospital during Sunday morning's message. So we caught like the first bit of worship, and Kayla and Kaylee and Chloe and the band. You guys did a great job Sunday. We enjoyed that, but then we were logging off. But all of you can catch the message on YouTube, even if you don't have Facebook. And so that's what I was doing, just kind of catching up, and you did a great job.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Phenomenal message.
It is on YouTube. The link is in the description, and my message notes are also in the description. So
Yeah.
feel free to tag along this wild ride with us.
It's never been easier to keep up and stay up with the messages. And, you know, I was talking to a few folks over the last few days as I'm emerging from my chaotic waters. And, man, if you miss a message, or if you're traveling or summertime, stay up with what's happening in our church. I feel like the pulpit on Sunday morning, whether I'm preaching or whether Pastor Cody is preaching,
Especially if I'm preaching. Especially.
It is, it's the lifeblood, the preaching of the Word of God, the preaching of the cross. It is what saves us. It is what keeps us. It edifies the body. So you'll feel like you're not a part, or you're missing what's going on if you're not keeping up with that. So it's never been easier. And thank you to Cody and Drew and everybody else who works on keeping these things up to date. So there's no excuse. But let's jump in here. So here's my question for you. The zombie apocalypse is coming, and it is coming, by the way. It is coming.
I think that's today's episode of Marvel's What If, is what if the Avengers were like zombies or something.
Really?
Pretty sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know. I could be
So
wrong.
the zombie apocalypse is coming. Who are 3 people you want on your team?
Oh, well, for sure, Alex Buck, number 1.
Man,
100%.
that was solid. Good pick. Yeah, man.
And then Kenny has to be with me. He's just like off the wall ideas that would work.
That would work. Kenny.
Are we talking like in my circle or like celebrities?
I don't think there's any, I think both of you men that he picked should feel very good about yourselves right now, because there is absolutely no restrictions on this.
The third person would be somebody with a large boat or yacht. So Greg Hensler comes to mind. I know you have a boat. So if you're listening, Mr. Greg, you're on my list.
That's quite a team. Kenny.
My wife is going to be so disappointed she
didn't
and my
make the
daughter
team.
didn't make the list.
Yeah. Certain people slow you
Oh,
down.
she doesn't listen anyway.
They detract from the team. That they would have been the remnant, the survivors. They're not a part of the team, right?
That's true.
They're the people
they're
that the
not
team
like
is trying
the
to keep
team.
alive.
We're supporting them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But Alex,
okay.
Kenny, Mr. Greg,
Yeah.
that's a heck of a team.
Those of you that I chose,
Yeah.
your families are welcome as well. We can all
That's
coexist
hilarious.
together in a commune of sorts on a boat.
Very David Koresh of you.
Yep.
I love it. Well, good stuff. We now that we know who your team is for the zombie apocalypse, we're going to jump into the director's cut. I liked your vantage point here. Right?
You mean God's vantage point.
Right. So your vantage point on the text, on God's vantage point, and it was good. It's a fresh way of looking at a very familiar passage of Scripture, right? And not to say that just the way you're looking at it. I think your content is also very fresh. And, just looking at, the tie-ins that you're going to make because you're immersing yourself into Hebrew, which if you were looking at his expo
you can
board,
see my wall here.
He has a whiteboard right here, and it's like the Hebrew alphabet, I think, some of it.
That's the whole alphabet and all the vowels.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all of it.
Yeah. So it's neat to see, your work and your study that comes out in your preaching. And I've enjoyed it. So, and just watching you grow, it's great.
It's been fun for all parties involved.
It's painful. Like even when I go back and listen to the messages that, that I preached or used to preach, right. It's just neat to watch the progression, for anyone, but
it's true.
You've stepped up to the plate. Not to make this all about you, because your head's already big enough. Mammoth Headwear.
Mammoth Headwear. Shout out to you guys for making hats that fit. I'm so grateful.
I may or may not have special ordered Cody a hat that would fit his dome piece.
Yeah.
And the brand is called Mammoth Headwear. But anyway, your head's big enough. We don't need, pride to boost it.
Well, honestly, I do feel good because when I was packaging up all of our message content to move it over Anchor, I found stuff of mine from 2-3 years ago, and oh my gosh, I can't believe you let me up there.
Well,
so I feel pretty good.
It takes time.
And some of you that are watching have been here the whole journey, and I just want to say that I'm grateful that you're still here and that you still respect me as a person. Or at least I would assume that you do.
Yeah.
If you don't, I understand.
They're just lying to you.
Yeah.
No, and it's just been a really neat, incredible thing to be a part of that journey with you. So hats off. I can't wait to hear next week's message.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. So a 2-part series. Cody's preaching 2 weeks, which is a huge
2-week mini-series.
Yeah, a huge help for me. And
in this chaotic waters state of your life.
Yeah, and I guess we might as well hit on that for a second. But we're so happy to be here. And boy, I could say so many things with that right there. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but it has been chaotic, man. My life. I mean, just a little rundown, and I'll probably forget something. But yeah, just totaled my truck in a very not good time. There's never a good time. But the Lord not only was the truck totaled, but I learned some really valuable lessons through that. Of just trying to be present, be in the moment. It was my fault. But anyway, so that was just an interesting thing that I've been dealing with. My credit union, there's the burps again, excuse me. My credit union was, I refinanced my truck maybe about 3 months ago, and the original loan, they couldn't communicate with the credit union fast enough. They assessed a late fee on my account. And so that has been sitting there, and my credit union, I've been paying for my truck payment. They don't even hold my title. Because the first, the first owner the bank that I financed with originally, because I didn't pay cash for the truck, they still are holding it. So I totaled the truck, and State Farm can't pay the new loan off because they don't even hold the title. So I'm dealing with that and in and out of the hospital. My wife, of course, we were expecting this mid-September. And then she had our baby, Rex James, 3 weeks earlier.
Rex Kwando.
Rex Kwando. Yeah. So that was a whole thing. It going earlier than expected. And if you know anything about us, we tend to just kind of do things right when we need to do them. So we needed those 2 weeks to prepare and do the things that we needed to do. But ultimately, everything's worked out. And what wasn't done is getting done now. But so we had him 3 weeks early because my wife's blood pressure spiked. And so they took him early, C-section, and then they discharged us. We were out for a couple days. Things were okay. And then her blood pressure spiked up again. And what we're learning is that preeclampsia, what I'm learning rather, is not just before birth. It can happen up to 6 days postpartum. And it can be a dangerous thing. You know, you're talking seizures or strokes. And so her blood pressure was really high, and then liver functions were high. And so with those two things, they readmitted her, and she just underwent some of the craziest treatments. So she is a champ. My wife is incredible. And so watching her go through and walk through more turbulent waters, you know, just from Saturday into Sunday, and then finally stabilizing the blood pressure. But then over the last day or so, they've spiked again, reevaluating medications. And so at this point, while we're filming this podcast, which it's Tuesday, it'll be released tonight, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Her blood pressure is stabilizing, so they are increasing medications and trying to find the right thing. So we covet your prayers, and you know, just pray that the Lord will heal her, and that she'll continue to heal as she recovers from surgery and from the preeclampsia and all of the other things. And Rex, the update on Rex James, he's doing amazing.
How much does he weigh?
Right now, I'm not sure. He was 7 pounds 5 ounces. Born
Nice.
3 weeks early, so he probably would have been almost 9 pounds.
He's a huge baby.
Yeah, if he would have come full term.
My daughter was 6'8" full term.
Yeah.
He's going to be a football player. That's your retirement right there.
He was good to go 3 weeks early. So it's a blessing that he was a big baby, just with the complications that she's experienced. So anyway, I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful for the Lord's hand of protection. We saw the hand of the Lord's protection in the accident that I was in, totaling my truck, in the birth, my son, my new son, you know, my wife's health. You know, the Lord has been there every step of the way. And so we're just very grateful for your prayers. We're very grateful for the texts, the calls, the encouragement. Our church family is literally the best.
You really are.
Yeah.
You are the best.
You are the best church family. So, but now I'm just trying to get my bearings, and I got this my last week. Next week, I'm back to sermon prep and jumping back into 1 Corinthians, but I'm trying to just get things in order. And so I bought a vehicle yesterday, and it was just like providence, really. You know, it was
providence.
Yeah, it was really cool. I have all my like search for what I wanted. I didn't really want a pickup truck anymore. I wanted an SUV with one more kid, and the I don't know, many of you, some know, some don't know, but I also have a business, and the you know, I was doing more of the work, and now I'm really not. I sub most of it out, but so I don't need the pickup truck as much. So anyway, I was gonna get an SUV. So it's like crazy right now. Like if you're buying a house, if you're buying a car, if you're buying anything right now, it's just not the time. You know, so that was kind of like, man, maybe I'm just going to put this thing off and buy a clunker or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I got a Focus I can sell you right now.
Yeah. Well, you kind of did the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you got incredible money for your pickup truck and got out of that payment, and, you know, got a little car that you pay cash. And I thought maybe I'll do that. You know?
To quote the great Joe Diffie, there's just something women like about a pickup truck. I think
very
that's Joe
true.
Diffie.
Yeah. Pickup truck or pickup man? I don't know.
Pickup Man, actually. I think it's both.
Is that a different one?
I think it's the same song. I think he
Here's
interchanges.
some women
That a pickup man. Yeah.
That one?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's one. That's it.
Anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's just crazy. But I had the search set, and one came across my email. I say one. There was like tons of them every day. But one that actually worked out, and it was cool because like the salesman, I went there. Yes, it was yesterday, and he was like, "Yeah, I go to Colonial Baptist Church, and he's in the same network, and Pastor, I'm going to take care of you," and everything just worked out. Shout out to Jason Covey for coming and looking at the vehicle.
Huge shout out to Jason.
Yeah, because there were some issues, but he gave me the peace of mind. But
he told me on Saturday, he was like, "Listen, if you do the Macho Man Randy Savage, like, yeah, while you're preaching on Sunday, I'll give you $20.
Did you do it?
No.
Oh, come on, man.
I wanted
$20. I can't
know.
believe you didn't do that.
$20 is $20. I've done a
Yeah.
lot worse for a lot less. You know, I just couldn't figure out a way to squeeze it in. I was
I'm shocked.
Yeah. I wanted to squeeze it in a way that nobody would have known that I was
Yeah.
doing it to make money.
Yeah, that would have been challenging.
Right.
Anyway, so life has been crazy, but we are just systematically walking through and trying to get things in order. My children started school today. So dropped them off this morning. It's just a lot going on. So we're just pray for the Lord's grace and mercy. We know He's giving it. We feel it. And so hopefully this week will just be an adjustment, getting everything back in order, and then next week we'll hit the ground running. But anyway, I know that this was meant to be though, and you slayed it.
Slayed, just
sea
like
dragon.
Yep, slayed the sea
So
dragon.
many references here.
Mm-hmm. It's loaded. It is this man.
Yeah.
Jonah 1, especially 1 is just loaded and about to give birth to so much good stuff.
well, give your thought process. So it's the director's cut was his title.
Yes.
So just a different perspective here and looking at it from a different perspective. Walk them through your thought process on that.
Well, so to me, first of all, Jonah has been, just over the ages, just brutally just torn down and turned into this caricatured children's story when it's really it's actually a work of art. I really appreciate the book, but it's very short. The total sum of the last 2 chapters is 22 verses.
Wow.
It's very small. But looking at it, a lot of people, we look at it and we think it's a story about Jonah getting swallowed up by a fish and then going and preaching to Nineveh, and it's about him. But the narrative context kind of gives way to show that it's a story about God. It's a story about how the Lord feels about the other nations and how the Lord deals with those who serve Him. But we always look at it like it's our story. The cat's out of the bag now. We always look at it as if it's Jonah's story written from his perspective, when it really, we have no reason to believe that it was written by Jonah. That's not to say that it's not a factual story. It's just that this is not written from Jonah's perspective. And it shows because Jonah's reaction and how he would phrase things in the story is not at all how it's composed. And if he wrote it, he did not make himself look very good. So this story is designed in a way to tell you something. And it's not just like, hey, this is Jonah writing an autobiography about what happened over the course of 4 or 5 days.
And the whale.
Right, exactly. It's not that. And so coming at it from that perspective, I'm like, okay, if this is God's story, if this is the story from His perspective,
Is that kind of like the Bible?
right,
Oh,
exactly.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but it does. It applies to the whole Bible. It does. I'm going to preach from the whole Bible next week. That's what I'm going to do. Survey all 66 plus the non-canon books.
Well, I think what you're saying is something that we all need to remind ourselves.
It's true.
It's not that we're saying that Jonah and the whale, that everyone who says that doesn't think that it's the Lord's story. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or that it's the Bible, but we do that.
We do. I think
we
culturally
forget.
it's just there. We
Yeah.
just think about it that way.
Okay.
My daughter literally has, and it irritates me, and my wife and I did not buy them. Somebody else did that I won't name. But just multiple children's story books on her bookshelf, which is fine. And they're all Bible stories. And then, of course, there's the Jonah and the whale one. And they all, I get it. We want to teach our kids scripture, and that's great.
We do.
You know what I mean? But I'm just these are just so, the way they're put together, and it just takes so much away.
Well,
and
it's a kid's story.
I'm just saying.
Easy,
I don't know
easy Hebrew on the wall. Gosh.
I'm just saying.
No,
I feel
Ruby. This is all going to be written in Hebrew, and you're going to love it. Here it
Yeah.
is.
I just feel like we can do better. The
Yeah.
Jonah story, we never tell the whole story.
Yeah.
We never, you know what I mean? It just, I don't know. It irritates me a little bit. Am I taking the books off my daughter's shelf? No. Will I read them to my daughter? Have I read them to my daughter? Yes. So, sue me. But whatever.
Well,
I'm a hypocrite.
no, there's room, right?
There is.
There's room for you to interject and put things into, and I don't do it often enough. I don't read to my kids and pray often enough with them, but it's when we do, and my wife is good about, hey, we need to hit the reset button on these rhythms,
Yeah.
But when I do, it's hey, and then so really what this says and really what it lasts for an hour and a
hey,
half.
actually, so this author who wrote this doesn't know scripture from a hole in the ground.
Right.
And
Yeah.
right.
And it's okay, this is what happens when your dad's a pastor.
Right.
Yeah, you can't read the Jesus Storybook Bible. That one's pretty good.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, I don't do it enough either. But Ruby will just be sitting up with her before she goes to bed, and she'll just grab one, and she'll be like, and
she makes these noises. If you don't know Ruby, she's like, and it prompts.
Yeah.
But she knows what she means.
She knows what she means.
She's
and at this
on
point,
it.
I know what she means. I'm like, oh, you want me to read you this book? Okay.
Yeah. And when she is good and ready, she will articulate words that she already probably pronounces by herself in her crib.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. Like my daughter still will not say mom. But we watched Frozen for the first time the other day while she was sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, the day before, I don't know. It was probably Sunday evening.
She was like, Elsa, Kristoff.
She did. She looked.
Her.
She was like, right. She was like Elsa, and my mom. Oh my gosh,
That's weird.
her mom. She was like, "Where's Elsa?" And Ruby was like, "Huh."
That's so
Just points to it.
Yeah.
So she says what she wants. It's bad.
True.
Bad
True.
behavior.
This is what it is.
But anyway, circling back from that rabbit trail, what would happen to us if we looked at our lives from God's perspective?
Yeah.
What would happen if we stopped thinking that everything going on was about us, the universe revolves around us, and what would happen if we took a step back and we looked at it from the director's cut? And I used that title because I was thinking about, I'm not a DC fanboy. I don't watch DC movies minus the Dark Knight trilogy. It's really good. But sometime in the past year or so, the Justice League movie came out. It might even be longer than that. And by all measurable standards, it was pretty terrible, which may or may not be my opinion. But then the director's cut came out, and everybody was like, oh, my goodness, like this is so much better. And what's funny is from like a filmmaking standpoint, and I'm not a filmmaker, but I know they didn't go film more. The only difference was that the film was, it was portrayed in a different way, and they arranged things different and included some things that weren't included in the first place. But it was all the same raw footage that went into producing these two projects. One was far better than the former, and that's because the director did it. And so looking at Jonah's life and looking at our lives from this perspective, I felt like was helpful. So not anything new per se, but maybe just for me, it kind of helped me understand maybe in a better way the way the book is supposed to be understood, if that makes sense.
It does, and I think that that's a good way of putting it. How you turn the tables, so to speak. Because
The tables.
the tables. You flip the tables like Jesus did.
Yep.
No, you turn the table, so to speak, in the sense that we are often putting ourselves in Jonah's shoes, right, rather than putting ourselves in the Lord's shoes and saying, "Okay, God, how are you viewing this?"
Yeah.
What's
how
your
many
object?
times have we heard a sermon about, like, I am Jonah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or, fill in the blank. Like,
And
we
I think
always want to
it's-
be, and it goes both ways.
Right. To be fair, it does.
To be fair, it does.
Yeah.
But it's less looked at this way, and I think that looking at it this way makes you, it just gives perspective. It really does, is how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think you brought out some really cool things. So just some of the things that stood out to me, shooting from the hip here, is the name of Tarshish, how you said it. Tarshish. Tarsus is how I would have said it in the past.
So that wasn't me, like, trying to be a scholar. That was just me butchering it.
No.
Tarshish.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say.
It isn't easy. Yeah. But, the meaning of that word playing into the director's cut, I thought was really good.
It's true.
That's a great piece.
Yeah, and it's in the notes if you want to read it, but Tarshish. I'm not even going to say it. You know the place name that I'm talking about.
Tarshish.
Shish. Yeah, we'll just...
Shish. That's how you said it.
Shish.
Tarsus,
I was really
Tarshish,
hoping it didn't
whatever.
come through that way, but it for sure did.
Yeah, we're not seminarians, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
We get passes.
Yeah, it's true.
Even though we both have Logos in the
Yeah.
pronunciation tool.
Right, it's true.
We should have checked it. Anyway, but the point is it just means, I think, what did you say, open sea?
Basically open sea. Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't necessarily going a specific place.
Yeah.
Because we don't really have, from that era, we don't really have a record of anywhere called Tarshish. Yeah. You get it. I'm going to have Drew clip that. Tarshish. Yeah.
Anyway.
But, we don't have any records of a place name, and that word can also mean the open sea, which makes sense because he took a boat.
Right.
So he wasn't really interested in going any specific place. He was just interested in leaving where he was. And leaving who he was just having a conversation with, which was the Lord.
Yeah.
And in verse 1, I thought it was interesting. So it says, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, arise and go to Nineveh. And I think we think about this, and I brought this up in the message, we think about it as like Jonah just woke up and had like a vision, or he heard something. But really, like, if you look in this in the broader context of how that phrase, the word of the Lord, or Dabar Yahweh, is used, in the text, it always refers to or I would say 9 times out of 10, it refers to a physical, like God presence. Yahweh shows up in human form to have a conversation. He shows up to eat a meal with Abraham in Genesis. Like it just, and that was the word of the Lord. Like it happens. And so, we, like Jonah, had a face-to-face conversation. It wasn't like a whim dream that he was like, oh, I'm not really sure. Like, no, it's a very direct command. And the Bible says that he fled from the face of the Lord. And the exact phrase is li pene, which means the face of, And so, it can be the face of or presence of. But in context, we can kind of see how the face thing would play out. And I guess really it doesn't, like Genesis, I think it's Genesis 1:2, when the Spirit was hovering over the face of the waters. It's that word. But looking at it from that way, like Jonah was indeed fleeing, he was fleeing the Lord. He was not fleeing, where he lived. He wasn't trying, he was less fleeing from a place. I'm all jumbled up now. He wasn't fleeing a place. He was fleeing a person, and that person was the Lord.
Yeah, he wasn't running from Nineveh.
Right, not necessarily. I mean, indirectly, sure, but
the point that you're making.
The point was that he was running from God and his calling.
God.
Yeah,
and I think we've heard people say that both ways. But I think that open water, fleeing the face or the presence of the Lord, that meeting from the Lord, it's just a great way to view this. That look, we run from the Lord sometimes, and when we're pursuing other things, like maybe we need to stop and think, and this is kind of where I was. Maybe I need to stop and think sometimes. Am I running to a specific, even when I think I'm running to a destination, maybe I'm not actually even chasing that. Maybe I'm running from something.
It's true.
Maybe this is just open waters for me, and that can be, we all have to kind of consider and think about, what are our open waters? What are our place? And we live in a culture that celebrates open waters. We live in a culture that celebrates the freedom.
Come on in, the water's fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, not that culture,
right?
But we live in a place where it's like, look, if you can find freedom, and if you can find almost like a lack of responsibility, that's great. Vacation.
Right. People, the goal of everybody's life is to get to a point where you have no responsibility and don't have to work.
Yeah, and that's not. This is the opposite of that. I'm sorry, this is that, but it's the opposite of what he should have been doing.
Yeah.
And when we come face to face with the Lord has something that he wants to tell us, and that something is going to turn into somewhere. But if we run from those meetings with the Lord into open waters, chaos is coming.
Chaos is coming, and that's where we're going.
Coming. So to talk to that, we don't have to, you don't have to take the long way around, but just this chaotic
All right, buckle
waters.
up, verse by verse. Here we go.
Excuse me.
I skimmed it hard on Sunday. There's so much to get into, and I was just like, I gotta stay on point.
You can deep dive further if you want.
No, there's no.
I just think people need to see this. The imagery is really,
it's really important.
It is
really important in the story,
and this is where you'll miss this if you're not aware of kind of what waters represent. Especially in the creation narrative and some of these others. So
exactly,
talk to them a little bit about that. Maybe some things that you didn't get to hit on in your message.
Yeah. There's a couple things that I maybe glossed over. I hit on them just to make the points that I wanted to make, but I didn't dive too deep. So when we look, right? I always do puns and not like intend to do them.
Know.
Like it's just I'm a walking dad joke. It's just what I am.
Yeah, you are.
I'm just a joke.
Key.
But
chaotic waters.
Yeah, by the way, whoever's Old Spice ringtone went off in church on Sunday, shout out to you because that was really funny.
I told him it didn't really, I heard about it, but it didn't really come through. My mother-in-law told me about it.
Yeah.
But it didn't come through as much on
I was
YouTube.
like on a pause and everybody was like locked in and then it was just like do-do-do-do-do-do-do. You know, I was like, man.
That's funny.
Wow.
It got a good laugh, that's for
yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah, you could hear the laugh on the mic.
Yeah.
And I was laughing too. But circling around to the chaos stuff. So Jonah's thrown into the waters, you know, and we'll skip through a little bit of the middle there, but he's thrown into the waters. And what's important to understand is like Jonah's actions have led him to a place of decreation. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that in Genesis 1, God is bringing order to the cosmos. He's taming the waters. He's telling them to be at bay in the same way that Jesus did when he was on the boat and he calmed the storm. and the waters. But he's bringing order. Genesis 1:21 says God created the tiny neem, which some translations do whales, some translations just do sea creatures. But really what it means is it means like a sea dragon would be the most literal interpretation. When Pharaoh and his his magicians or his wise men, they sent out the serpents after Moses turned his staff into a serpent. Those were tiny neem. So there's like this theme where this verb is used, but it always talks about some form of like dastardly sea creature, a sea dragon. And that's not to say that, the point, and I said this in the message, the point isn't that it's not that we should be looking for sea dragon fossils because it's in the Bible. Are there sea dragons? Were there sea dragons? I don't really know. I don't really care. But in the ancient Near East, this was a chaos symbol. And what I mean when I say that is like everything that is not Eden, everything that is not a part of God's good orchestrated world falls into this bucket, this chaos bucket. And so you have the sea monsters, and which, I'll tie in kind of how significant Genesis 1:21 is when we circle back through. But the chaos dragon and then the waters, the chaotic waters, these are all signs and symbols of decreation. When the Noah's flood happens, the waters collapse back in on themselves. That like decreation happens in the flood. The chaos waters are unleashed. And so what's happening is Jonah's situation, his choices have brought him to a place where he is now literally neck deep in the water, and he is swallowed up by a sea dragon. And so that's kind of how the imagery takes you there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, and so, and I called Rob out during the message because he always will like, hey, Jonah and the whale, and I'm like, no, the Bible very clearly says big fish. Okay, it's not a whale, it's a big fish. And that's important to me, and you'll see why. But so if you read the text, it's, like I said, some text will render it a whale, which may or may not be an accurate inference, because I guess in some way or another you could consider that a sea monster if you're like an ancient person. Whatever.
I think whales are sea monsters.
Yeah.
I'd be scared to death.
I did some research on the back end, and actually in the Mediterranean, one of the sea creatures that would have been a candidate for what swallowed Jonah would have been a basking shark.
Huh.
Which are the things that like they have the big, it's almost like an unhinged mouth. It gets really big.
Yeah.
And it can just swallow you. And on top of that, there are stories in the last 100 years of somebody like a whaler or somebody being swallowed and spit up and surviving.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of the whole thing's pretty plausible. But
you could call that thing a sea monster.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm just defending it.
Yeah.
I'm defending my position.
Defend what you want. It was a whale.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But seriously.
But so the noun in Hebrew, it's literally just great fish in Hebrew. Dag gadol. Gadol is great, which when we say, oh, that's great, like we think that's good, but in Hebrew, like great is like you think about like a great warrior or a great king, like somebody who's very capable of hurting you, like great as in like threatening, maybe a better way of describing that term. And then dag is just a generic term for fish. D-A-G is how we would spell it. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's pretty generic, very non-specific verbiage used. I was like, let's check.
Threatening fish.
Yeah. Well, great fish, whatever, literally great fish, but it just depends on how you would use the word great. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, let me check. I have my my Hebrew Dead Sea Scrolls in my Logos account, and I was like, let's check and see if there's a Jonah manuscript and if it uses the same verbiage. And I did, and to my surprise, it's the same verbiage as the Masoretic text. Interesting. Which is interesting. And then I was like, okay, well, let me check the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, and see how they rendered it. And it was megalokete. I think I'm probably butchering that. I don't do Greek, not yet at least. And it's kind of the same concept, but there's two Greek words for fish. One is I think peskas or pesca, which is where we get the word pescatarian. Generic fish. So this word used in Greek is different in meaning than the one that we have in Hebrew. Hebrew very generic, and this one is a very different kind of fish in Greek. And so Jesus, when he talks about Jonah being swallowed by the fish, the NASB actually does render it sea monster when Jesus is talking about it. But he uses the Greek word katos, which is, I think, both the name of a Greek deity and also like very explicitly describes a sea monster. And so to me, I'm like, okay, so the chaos imagery is there. Like that's for 100%. Sure, to me, and if Jesus said it, I'm good with it. So to me, that kind of laid the groundwork, and I was tracking on this, and then coincidentally, as I was prepping, the Bible Project came out with their Jonah classroom series, and I was like, okay, let me see if I'm on the right path.
Yep.
And me and Tim were on the same.
Timmy saying?
Yeah, me and Tim were on the same wavelength, and I was like, okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
I got it. That was like affirming.
Well, I think it fits, and this is the lovely thing about Bible study. It's you're not coming up with anything new.
Right.
You're just coming up with more pieces.
Yep, more pieces to the puzzle.
And what that, essentially, if I put a puzzle together, we were talking about our kids earlier, when we start off doing puzzles with our children, first it's like a tiger with a peg through it, and it's like the full picture, and you just put tiger where tiger is. You know what I mean?
Man, Ruby loves those things.
Yeah.
She's like, huh.
But that's how you do puzzles, when you're first starting off. But what makes it more intricate is when you take that tiger and you just put it into 20 different pieces, or then 100 or 1,000.
Right.
And there's so much more there, right? So what this is just more pieces.
Just more pieces.
Now we're taming chaotic waters.
Exactly.
That brings in the creation narrative, and you're decreating.
Yeah.
What happens when the Lord speaks, right? Well, things are created.
Yeah.
Genesis 1. What happens when you run from his words? Your life is decreated.
Exactly. Right. There's so much there. There's so much there.
That's amazing.
And to me, like, people are, there's this debate of whether, is Jonah real? Is Jonah not real? Like, well, like, look at, I don't care, honestly. Like, look at look at the picture that's being painted here.
Right.
To run from the word of the Lord is to inevitably run into chaos. And that was one of my practical points at the end of the message, is to run from Jesus, to run from Christ, is to run to chaos or decreation. We don't, and like, we just think that we can go off and do our own thing.
That's right.
And that there's no,
ramifications.
There's no ramifications.
But there is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not even that like God's like, oh, you're going off and doing your own thing, I'm going to punish you. Like, no, that's just what you're running back to.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it is there. The chaos dragon, Genesis 1:21, God created it. Like, the forces of chaos in this world are just there.
Yeah.
They are, and you're running to it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to think about. It's not just God being, this mean guy who's going to judge you. The flip side of not having a loving father is having the chaotic waters.
Yep.
Is having the cosmos is now against you.
Yep.
Rather than him taming it for you.
That's good.
His kingdom
really
is either
good.
going to come in such a way that it brings to fruition fruit in your life from a beautiful garden, right? Or it will tend to entropy so fast.
Yep.
As we run to our sin, as we run, and deconstruction happens as long as the Holy Spirit and the Lord is not present. You're deconstructing.
Yep.
You're decreating. And so why is that important? Because he's the second Adam. The first Adam is nothing more than chaos, right? The second Adam is reversing the curse.
Yeah.
And
you kind of hit on that. I think it was probably 2 months ago in one of your messages from 1 Corinthians about how those who are lost are in an active state of being destroyed.
They are actively being destroyed.
Not that God is destroying them, but that's just the state that they're in.
That's right.
And we're giving them a message who's trying to save them from being decreated.
Yeah. And this brings urgency to our mission. And it's, I can't remember the verse, but that's exactly what it was. Yeah. But it's so good. Like, getting the optic.
Those who are perishing, something like that.
That was it. Yeah. The full, the preaching of the
in
cross
there somewhere.
Is, salvation to those, but to those, it's,
to those who are perishing is foolishness.
That's right.
Like that.
Yeah. So anyway, it's so good. I love this perspective. I love taming the chaotic waters, what that means, the deconstruction that's happening. I'll throw this at you. I'll lob this at you, and maybe you'll laugh it off in your research, but I know it's in the commentaries because I've preached from there before. But the idea that he chartered this boat, right, to the open sea. The most commentaries will say that he chartered the whole thing, and when you chartered a boat in this day and age, you had to pay for the crew. So like, literally, when he didn't punch a ticket and get on a bus, he chartered the boat. Jonah had means.
Yeah, he had the money.
He threw some money down.
Preachers of L.A.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that show still comes on, but anyway.
Was it a thing?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Wait for the Preachers of BQ. But the point is like
Catch me at sunset.
How about that? But the thing is like he running from the face of the Lord, like he
costs you a ton.
Oh my goodness. So and this is where this is there's so much here.
This is practical for everybody. Running from the face of the Lord hits you in your pockets. And everybody watching was like, "Oh, I don't want that. I don't want that."
Well, but think about that, right? If the Lord if we're stewarding what we have financially towards the Lord, then he blesses it. He sanctifies it. He sets it apart, right? Jonah, what he had was now not being set apart. It was being thrown in.
Yep.
Everything that he had was
swallowed up.
Tossed overboard.
Yep.
What does that mean? It means all of the money that he just invested, right, was gone into this chartering, into this running, into the life that you think you're going to have. Even and this is hard for us to come to grips with, right? But like even when things are going well, like Satan uses good things. He uses good things to consume us. He uses the wealth and the wisdom of the world in negative ways sometimes.
It's true. He will use good things to tear us down.
That's right.
But the moral of the story here is that God will use bad things to build us up.
That's right.
By all measurable standards.
He tamed it.
He
reversed it.
The sea monster that would have been, and this is not exclusive to the Israelites, like the world, like that part of the world at the time, like these, the sea beasts, the sea dragons. Rahab, your dog's named after one.
She is a sea dragon.
But these,
that was the other thing that we did that's been chaotic.
New dog,
chaotic waters.
Dog.
We got a puppy. That was dumb. Anyway, you heard it
you're
first.
just an
here.
ambitious guy. That's all there is.
That I am.
But the the thing that everybody would have been like, oh, he's a goner, and the sailors, they don't know that they probably went to their grave thinking Jonah died.
Yeah.
They saw him get swallowed by something and they went back to shore in their boat.
Well, but they knew, right? Because,
they went back and they worshiped the Lord.
Exactly. And that's the piece in this story where it's like the reversal, right? When the Lord created something, right? Recreated, right? Tamed the chaos.
Yeah.
They saw, right? And I think your point to, and I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead, share it. What happens when, we're running versus the people that are around us that we're taking with us?
Yeah, it's true. You're not on an island. Your decisions affect those around you, whether you know it or not. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be your family, but your actions affect everybody on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And when you choose to run from what the Lord wants, and a lot of it's a simple thing, like if you're a dad, you're called by God to be a good father.
Yeah.
If you're a husband, you're called to be a good husband. If you're employed, you're called to be a good employee. These are very practical, like no debate, God's calling for your life.
Right.
And when we choose to run from that or neglect that, whatever that looks like we're taking somebody else down with us, which is not good.
That's right.
And I made the comment on Sunday, like not everybody is as lucky as Jonah to get virtually every other person that's been eaten by a fish in human history has not been spit up. They have died.
That's right.
The forces of chaos will consume you, and you may not get out like the same way that Jonah did, which is sobering to think about. But
I think that's a theme from the director's cut, if you will. It's the men that he chartered. You're stewarding resources. How many people are you leading to the Lord? How many people are you leading to the recreation?
Right.
They that be in Christ are new creatures.
Yeah.
Right.
And some people would even regard Jonah as the first missionary. Some would call him that. Whether that's fair or not, I guess is up for debate. But
I think it's fair.
But he was the only prophet in Old Testament history to be sent to a foreign nation to preach a message of repentance.
Yeah.
At least that I could think of off the top of my head now.
It's crazy though when you think about that, isn't it? It's just like non-Hebrews. It's weird. It's just a strange
especially
thing.
given who the Assyrians were. Like the whole thing is just very backwards.
It's very strange. But he says to me, I remember a spot in the text where it says, I think it's kind of like the Lord's why in this. Well, there's like 100,000 people who don't know their right hand from their left
They're
hand.
innocent. There's children.
They're kids, and so I think that the director's cut is showing us
It shows us God's heart.
Yeah, you're renting men, to charter this boat, and you're concerned about them getting you to open sea, and I'm concerned about taming their waters as well.
Right.
And then there's children, in Nineveh that I'm concerned about, that I want to show my love to, and Jonah's like, no, heck no.
Right. Exactly.
So you get the Lord's heart, coming through this narrative.
It does. It shows. And, in spite of Jonah's disobedience and him doing everything he can to divert what God wanted him to do, God ultimately still gets the end result that he desired.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And it doesn't really, maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't really see a resolution on Jonah's end.
No,
it just ends like this open-ended thing where it's like, what happened to that guy, You know
what's funny is Jim Rosendale came up to me on Sunday.
He said this in small group
about Jonah's grave. In Assyria, which is somewhere in modern Iraq, but ISIS destroyed it, I think, a couple years ago, something like that.
So we have a man in our church who he's done 6 tours over there. Yeah. Different places around the world.
I don't know if he's high profile or not. Maybe we shouldn't have name dropped him.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go back and scrub it. No, just kidding.
We'll scrub it or something.
He'll be all right.
Yeah.
He'll be
if you've ever seen him, he's more than capable of defending himself.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Come on, Al-Qaeda. Let's
But he did share in small group the same thing, and it's like it seems as though the historical narrative
turn of heart.
That Jonah had a turn of heart.
Yeah.
Whatever that. Yeah. However, we should have said
heart.
that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it seems that, historically his grave was there in Nineveh. And so he either came off that hill and decided to, go in and embrace what the Lord had for him.
Yep.
And I think for all of us, right? We have to find that place where, we see whatever it is we're looking at and looking towards. Maybe it's the open sea that we have to turn our back on.
Yep.
And we have to go, okay, this seems like a really difficult path, but ultimately that's my recreation.
Yep.
That's the non-chaotic version. And so we have to unpack that in our hearts and in our lives as to what the non-chaotic version is. A lot of people will look at a Christian's life, whether in Afghanistan, in 2021, and they'll think, well, that's retarded. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's actually not. It's the non-chaotic version.
Right.
That's the Lord doing recreation work in our lives.
So I'm actually reading a book right now. I think it's called Dreams and Visions, but it's about the Christian awakening in the Muslim world and how these people are having dreams.
Oh my goodness.
And one of the first stories
sounds fun.
Yeah, it's really good so far. It's like a 6-hour audiobook. Really cool.
It's quick.
And it's literally just so far it's just a compilation of stories that they've, that they either know of firsthand from their ministry or stuff that's been vetted and verified.
Interesting.
So it's not just bunk.
Yeah.
But this lady had a dream. And, the story is this guy's in a marketplace and a woman runs up to him and she's calling him by name.
Wow.
And,
Holy
the guy's and the guy's a Christian and he's in a market in a Muslim country. And so when somebody
scary
and he was okay, number one, women are not allowed to talk in public. And this woman is coming at me shouting my name.
Wow.
And I'm a Christian. I could be in danger.
Yeah.
And number two, where's her husband? Because even if this isn't about that, I could be in trouble for just talking to her.
Wow.
And so she comes up to him and she's like, I saw you in a dream last night. And he's kind of putting it together and he was like, well, was I in a dream with a guy named Yeshua? And she was like, yeah. You were wearing these clothes and, I was in the dream and they told me to come here at this point in time. And,
whoa.
Yeah. And he was and on his end, he said he was just reading his Bible that morning and he just felt a strong, impression, I should go to the market and buy whatever he was buying. And so she meets him there. He's wearing the clothes that he was wearing in her dream, the same glasses, the whole thing. And she was like, yeah, I had this dream and I've never felt. And, but circling back to that culture over there, for her to turn to Jesus, it cost her something. And he was, she was like, so do I have to, and she had no idea about Christianity because she was a Muslim.
Right.
And he said they had a 3-hour conversation and she was like, so are you telling me that I have to, convert from Islam or leave Islam? And mind you, and if you think about it, in her culture, she would have lost everything.
Yeah.
And he was like,
probably
I'm not,
including her life.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just telling you that Jesus wants you to follow him. That's why you had that dream. And that's why we're here having this conversation. And he said she just kind of paused and was like, wow, that's a lot. I'll have to think about that. And I think we take for granted, in that culture, like to turn to Jesus, you're very much so turning away from everything that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in our culture, we view it as more of just a whatever thing, like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, today. And in some cases that works out to our benefit economically, socially, whatever.
Right. That's right.
But over there, it is like you're giving up your whole life.
Yeah.
Like you were.
It does not work out.
Yeah. It looks like from the outside, from your perspective, that you're entering into the chaotic waters, but really you're entering into recreation.
Yeah.
And it's just such a.
The Lord has tamed the sea dragon.
Yep.
He has tamed the chaotic waters.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
He sure has.
But
But really good stuff. There's a ton more that we could cover, but I would just encourage you to, like I said on Sunday, read the book of Jonah. It's probably a 20-minute read, if that. Read it 5 times, see what sticks out. Then go back and read Genesis 1. Tie those two things together because they do work together. But man, Jonah is just, it is pregnant with good stuff.
And it's going to give birth on Sunday.
It is going to give birth on
Church
Sunday.
on Sunday. You're my Chick-fil-A.
Dude, Kanye, it just wasn't my flavor. I really wanted to like that album, but
it's okay.
Except for that one. That was good.
That one was good.
Yep. But yeah, go back and listen to it. I mean, not to toot my own horn, I felt like it went pretty well. It's definitely some of my best work. And when I say my best work, I mean it's just a really good text, and I feel like there's just a lot out there to unearth in such a small book. It's such a work of art.
Yeah, and it is work to unearth and find and pray in the Spirit to reveal those things, and I think it was really good. I think it was edifying, and it built up the church. I can't wait for this next week.
It's going to be really good.
Yeah, what do you want to leave them with? Maybe a teaser, a cliffhanger, getting them into next week.
Well, I think right now the theme is like Jonah chapter 3 and 4. Like you're kind of, the first verse of chapter 3 is like a reboot. Like the word of the Lord came again to Jonah, and he actually does it this time. So we're kind of going at a reboot. We're going at this thing again. So we're looking at take 2 this week. I don't know if that's the title or not yet, but that's pretty much it. Take 2
title.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like
Okay.
it.
Maybe that is the title. That's what we're gonna title.
Are you going with it?
You heard it here first. Take 2.
Yeah. That's
Jonah.
fun.
Take 2.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. What a great conversation.
It's good stuff.
And it was a great message. That's why we had a great conversation.
Yes.
So well done, and I can't wait to do this again next week after your second message.
We'll see how this one goes.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for tuning in.
God bless
Love
you.
y'all.